Okay, I think we're live for the 31st edition of the Data Value Show. Today is going to be the value of truth on data products, and I am located on this occasion actually in preparation for Skid. So I'm on the mean data mountains at the moment. So hence a nice backdrop for us. Right. So without further ado, Malcom, Hawker, nice to have you.
Glad I could be here. Envious of your background, sir. It looks
yeah,
brilliant.
I thought I once wouldn't go for a fake one anyway. But yeah, so for the audience, I had the pleasure of meeting Malcom Hawker at Day to Day Texas. There was not a shortage of things to discuss over dinner and post dinner and at the event as well. And I saw his presentation about data products, and I found it very well. Had a lot of truth bombs in it, which we liked. I think today's one is the theme is truth bomb alert. So so Malcom, for the audience, give yourself an intro and a bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Really great to be here. Thank you for having me. Look forward to sharing some of those truth bombs. Hopefully we can find them today. So again, I'm Malcom. I'm the head of data strategy with Profisee software. We are a vendor of MDM, Master Data Management Software. Happy to talk about that in more detail anywhere, anytime. Previous to joining Profisee about a year and a half ago, I was an analyst at Gartner. So for the previous 3 years, 2019, 2020, 2021, I was talking to CIOs and CDOs all day, every day about what works and what doesn't work from a data management, data governance, data strategy perspective. Had the honor of co-authoring 3 Magic Quadrant documents, which was kind of cool. Previous to that, I've worn just about every hat in the data world. I've been a vendor, I've been a consultant. Previous to my foray into data about 20 years ago, I was actually chief product officer. I ran the product organization with a small software startup in Austin, ran and managed multiple product teams, built multiple products, been responsible for P&Ls, have hired a lot of product managers in my day. So now I'm kind of bringing it all together. So I'm been a hardcore data nerd for the last 20 years or so, but previous to that, I was really deep into the world of products and know that world, and looking forward to our chat today.
Brilliant. And I think the opening bullet we had on there, and we were just having a little chatting about it backstage, and it filled that time quite quickly, and there's a lot more we can get out of that as well. And it was the Purism versus Pragmatism in this world of data products, and so everyone's talking about it, everyone wants to do it. There's a big difference in opinion between some people of what it is and what it isn't, and everyone's probably right from their own point of view. But it's that where purism and pragmatism, how you get that balance. So what's your view of how we solve that and the opposite end of the spectrum that you've seen?
Yeah, well, I definitely fall on the pragmatist side of the equation. So the purists in our world, particularly people who are born and raised in the world of data and analytics, at least this is what I see through my eyes, tend to lean towards the pure side of data products in defining a data product and trying to have very, very specific ways of defining a product, generally through the lens of the attributes of the product. That, the product must be this, must be this, must be this, must be this, and we must define it, and it must be clearly labeled and clearly definable. And that's how we define a data product, right? And that's how we as data people generally define the world, through the attributes of something. Yep. And on the other side of the spectrum is kind of more pragmatism. Product people tend to look at the world through the problems that are being solved, the value that is being delivered. So those are kind of, to me, those are two very, very different ends of the spectrum. One is a product is this thing, and it has very specific attributes, and you can nail it down, and it is unique, and it's all these things. And over here, a product person would say, what problem are we solving? What value are we delivering, right? And those are different ends of the spectrum. I tend to fall on more of the product manager side of the house, because that's the way that my brain is wired. I understand the need to have these very, very clear definitions. You could look at maybe Zamak's definition of a data product through the data mesh. She's got a very specific definition of it. She said, hey, it's these things. It needs to fulfill these characteristics in order to be a data product. Okay, fine. But I would argue that definition doesn't go nearly far enough, because you're not really kind of talking about the customer. The customer has to be part of the equation when you're talking about products, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And if you just say, okay, well, I'm building a product, it's built by the domain for the domain to solve domain specific needs. Okay, well, what value are you delivering? Can you quantify the value of that product? That's another thing that we don't do in the data world at all. We don't do it at all.
Yep.
Like, every product manager worth their salt will be doing some sort of P&L analysis on the product. They'll be able to say, here's how much it costs to build it. Here's the value that it's delivering. That's an equation, right? Bringing in versus cost. Well, that's ROI. Every product manager will do that as a part of some sort of product lifecycle. As a part of, figuring out, what do I work on and what do I not work on? What do I prioritize? What's the most important stuff? Every product manager will do that. We don't even do that in the data world at all.
Yep. Or if we do, we're basing it on the wrong metrics, or metrics that are too focused on things that are unachievable and high risk, but also maybe sold at the board level of solving a problem which we all know in reality is very difficult to solve. Yeah. I've been in again many roles in my past, but in an organization where the marketing department said they're going to produce 50 times ROI for a Salesforce project, implementing CRM. It never realized that. The person that implemented wasn't there when they realized that. But the focus had been on that one big ticket rather than iterative things that could have unlocked the similar sort of value over a longer period of time, but with less risk. Yeah. There's a couple of things I've made some notes of as you were talking there. I've been down that side of thinking, okay, if it's a product, it has to skew. In a master data, a PIM or master data management, a product is an item. It'll have attributes describing it, but it is something that will be on there and be on your ledger. But I think what we're trying to do in that data world is use a data product methodology, but to deliver things that really don't actually have a skew, but they are things that can help you deliver value for a skew that may exist, but also may be able to provide the ability to create new skews that you'd be able to sell that you wouldn't have before. So it's the machine that makes the machine that delivers the use cases. It's having that product mentality. I think it is something we need to encourage, and that's something I support.
Well, it's interesting because what I see again is a real break here, where people in the data world tend to look at things from a product lens through how something is made.
Yep.
Right. Through how it is made, and tend to look at things through a lens of, for example, on my podcast, I just talked to Pitai Strengthold, who wrote the O'Reilly book, Data Management at Scale. And he's all about reuse, and it's all about governance and reuse. But it really speaks to an architecture. It really kind of, the data product is really done with the intent of making data management easier and more scalable, right? It's not necessarily done per se with the intent of exciting a customer and keeping a customer really, really happy. So I agree with you. Yeah, there's got to be a skew there. There's got to be a unit of sale, right? There has to be something that you are actually selling, some unit of, or value. A unit of value, I think, is probably better described. There has to be a unit of value there. I agree. There has to be a skew, and it does have to be, discoverable, which is one of the attributes, as Zamak would say, what needs to be a data product. But it's not about data management. It's not. It should be about customer success.
Yep.
And I think that perspective is really, really important, because we put too much focus in the world of data on kind of data management, data architecture, optimizing for how we manage the world of data versus making things simple for a customer.
Yep. Yeah. And the term architecture has come up a couple of times, and I think actually Bill Inman's been doing a series of articles recently, and something that I've again in the past supported, and and felt he'd been missing or overlooked. Been around a while, had many different architect titles, and the days of the enterprise architect and dictating a roadmap for you, and then everyone having to fit into it. Those days are gone. But I think we went too far. Engineers having control of what was built more without having that architecture runway. So I think there is a revisiting that, and your architecture runway should allow you to support data products in the term that we referred to earlier. It was in the SKU that you can sell.
Yeah.
But then also probably the ones that are more abstract, and those ones that I think MIT have their term for monetization. They use wrap, sell, improve. I refer to this quite a few times, but it's the wrap one is the one that it's probably, well, harder to execute. Maybe improvements very easy to identify by business processes. Selling, you've got to created that SKU that we mentioned, but wrapping it is where that customer thing referred to is providing something, a feature that makes the customer journey better, make it more stickier from a I want to be working in this place, I don't need to go anywhere else, I can add other things to this. It solves more problems for me, less likely to move across, more likely to be able to charge a higher premium for it. So I think there's that understanding, when you're talking about a data product, and it's what language you use to each of them, and then each of them will be right in their own part. And I think the thing that we were talking about earlier is the role of a product manager, be it a data product manager, an AI product manager, but someone that is specialist in that industry, but have that role or title or a responsibility as the product manager. It's how they can work with the architecture runway, work with the different camps of what data product is, to eventually get to the thing that you sell and makes your company more money.
Yeah, well, so on the issue of architecture, let's forget data. Let's say we're building software, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say we're just building software. Software is our product, which I'm familiar with and have built and sold. If I'm a product manager, I want to get something built. I want to build some products or a product, and I go to IT and I say, okay, here's what I want built. Here's the customer need. That here are my requirements, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe we could do it through Agile. It could be Scrum. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You can pitch a requirements document over the fence. It doesn't matter to me. On the other side of the fence, there's going to be somebody in IT that looks at that and says, oh, okay, I need to build on an architecture to support this. And it needs to be flexible, and it needs to be scalable, and it needs to be cost effective, and it needs to be secure. It needs to be all of these things, right? But there's going to be a balance there, because the checkbook is not endless.
Yep.
Right. There's a tension that should exist between a product manager and what they want, and making just completely total bespoke, customized products that one-off that require an entirely new architecture. The architecture is going to push back and say, hey, listen, I can't do this, because you're asking me to create some sort of hybrid of cold fusion and world peace, and it's not going to be scalable, and it's not going to be reusable, and it's not going to be cost effective. So figure it out, product manager. That's the tension that should naturally exist between architects and product managers. If any one of those gets out of balance, right? If the architect just goes and does what the architect wants to do because they think that they don't need to be kind of accountable to customer needs, or they're just going to go and focus entirely on scalability and reuse and flexibility, and not take enough of that customer input into account, I would argue that is a situation that things are going to get out of balance.
Yep.
And you're focused too much maybe on architecture. You're being maybe too conservative, so it's a balance. You just got to find it.
It's back to the original thing. It's the purism versus pragmatism, and again, we're having that torn as well. Sometimes, having my architecture hat, and then also trying to sell. Sometimes is I can't sell something I don't believe that can be built. So it may not be the best way of selling sometimes, but at least it's the truth. The truth is there. But and the other thing I was just thinking as you mentioned that is, if we look at the individual projects all independently, and then do it that piece with not understanding the roadmap. And I think this is something that organizations, again, because of historical failures in the projects that have happened, and going and getting budget for these things, there's not been that commitment of going, right, here's the next 18-month plan we got out there. We're gonna hit. These are the requirements, and the architects say, well, if you do it in this order, I can get these things, I can reuse it there. The product manager say, there's reusable components that I can use. There's some rivets, as you mentioned earlier, from the jeans that I can reuse on that. I got the die I've got over there I can reuse. There's that componentized or a composite way of actually building up things. Then there's less wastage because it's being done in the right order, that is providing iterative use cases that deliver it. May not be it may not be in the order that the product managers may actually want, and there'll be a difference of how much value it is for the organization. But again, that's another challenge, I think, that hasn't been done well in many companies.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, what you're speaking to in essence is a data strategy or a data product strategy. Yeah. Right. I would love to see more people focused on a data product strategy with actual product managers. You touched on this earlier, right? I would say if you're serious about data products, or more correctly, if you're serious about customer success, if you're serious about actually enabling a data-driven culture within your organization, if you want people to use your products and be excited about data and to deeply integrate it into everything they do, the decision making, you name it, I would argue you need to take more of a product focus. And to do that, you need to hire a product manager. Product manager would say, let's figure things out for the next 2 to 3 years. And that needs to be reflective of a data strategy that should reflect a business strategy. And all those things would come together. And again, you would sit down with people on the data side of the house and say, yeah, I know it's 2 to 3 years out. So accuracy levels here, things can change, right? Subject to change. But it's our best guess of what the future would look like. Hey, architect, here's what I think. Here's where I think we're going. Now go and build with this in mind. We may deviate. Priorities may shift. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But I would argue is that, potentially over the last few years, some of our biggest, boondoggles, maybe, for lack of a better word, in the data world have happened when we went out and did architecture for architecture's sake. You could maybe argue that was Hadoop. Maybe that was a bit of big data. There wasn't enough of a big business problem to find. The funny quip that I always say is that big data and Hadoop answered a lot of questions that nobody was asking.
Yep. And I did a post. I think I called it hoarding versus hindsight. Data hoarding versus data hindsight. And it was just this week, and it was literally talking about the data warehousing times. It was too cost effective to actually have the data hoarding scenario. So you always had the data hindsight. Oh, I wish I had been able to get that. No, it's too late now. And then we were flipped the other way around with the big data era, and it was we'll hoard everything. Scheme on read, it's all unusable, no quality, and then we're trying to find use cases for it later, rather than whereas before, to justify the expense of a data warehouse project, you had to have got the requirements, they'd already been pre-planned, and it was probably a 2-3 year budget you got CapEx for. Right. I think this is something that me and Matt have talked about many times. Is this world of the OpEx world has created a different culture and behavior in organizations, and because of that, I think we're lacking the thing we just mentioned there, which is a long-term business strategy, a longer term with a data strategy that's underpinning it, with a product roadmap that's underpinning it, that's working with an architecture team that's all working together, because they know where they're heading. At the moment, all of them are doing their best job that they're paid to do in their domain, which is I'm an architect, I'm going to design the best platform. The product manager, I'm going to design the best products I know I can sell. But I don't think the business strategy, because of spend or maybe the environment now, that with recent changes of COVID, wars, instability of maybe businesses not knowing where they're going, has created a lack in direction, and OpEx fuels that, because you don't have to have that pre-planning. It's I've ring fenced this amount, the same as last year. Okay, that'll do. No, if you did 5-year plan, you times that by 5. I'm damn sure they'd want some justification for that millions that you've just gone and put into OpEx costs for some.
I remember those days, man. Like I remember the OpEx CapEx debates, right? I remember having to be able to justify spends through a 3 to 5 year lens, right? And if you couldn't justify it from 3 to 5 years, well, you had a problem.
Yep.
But like back in those days when it was all CapEx, right? Like that's you kind of needed to have some sort of roadmap capability there, because you couldn't just go spend money for something that was delivering value in year one. If it didn't deliver value in year 2 and year 3, well, you can't capitalize it. Then you forget about it. Then the accountants are going to kill that even before it gets on your desk. So
I've got a whole thought on this one as well. Is the fact that it depends what mode you're in as an organization of where your CDO should report to is the thought behind it. But if you're in a fiscal mode, which is you got to make money this year with whatever I spend, the CFO is the only one that's going to sign stuff off, doesn't care about anything else. Right. That's the only way to get projects done. If you're in more of a fueled VC, money's no object. You're in that Uber style of it's forward growth, and that's all you're worried about. It's not about making money year 1 to year 2. It's year 5 is the bigger picture. Then it's a totally different organization structure and probably a different product roadmap structure.
Yeah. I think if we had more of those roadmaps, I think. Like having a 3-year product roadmap as a data person, right? As a CDO, do you have a 3-year product roadmap? I think if we had those, we'd be far less vulnerable to shiny objects, right? I would argue we are really vulnerable to shiny objects because we just don't plan that far in the future, or we don't understand what chasing the shiny object would do to years 2 and 3. Right. Yeah. I would argue to a certain degree. Now, this may cause a lot of pearl clutching with your audience. I'm not sure, but I would argue in many ways, the data mesh is a bit of a shiny object chase. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I don't know anybody who can tell me the expected ROI of a data mesh. Not one. Yeah. Not one. I hear platitudes. I hear a lot of platitudes. Well, you can't really do that because we're talking about a socio-technical approach that is a complete different way of managing data. And it's a new way of thinking about how to manage your business and your data. And okay, fine. I'm that CFO and I'm hearing that as a business justification. I'm like, get out of my office, right? Like you're going to, I don't want to hear a platitude about a new way of doing business. I want to hear about numbers.
So do you think, there are many data mesh projects going on there, and there's people listening that will sure will say that have been very successful with those ones. But I think the end goal that we all agree on is the data mesh is to support a data product approach. Okay, so
it is indeed.
The data mesh is just sorry, methodologies, way of working, ideology, a blueprint of if you do this, you can deliver data products easier. Which is great, but it may not mean you have to actually listen to it verbatim and it'll actually follow it exactly to go and achieve the data product. Yeah. So that pragmatism versus purism, the product's the end game of focus. If data mesh helps you deliver that and it's proven, great. But don't take the end off the
The pragmatism versus purism of the data mesh world, that's another great example of it, because it seems like purism has largely been abandoned because people have figured out it's impossible, at least in the short term, right? Can we, there's a lot of things about the mesh that are arguably laudable, right? Like complete decentralization, complete federation of both architecture and business management. Like that sounds interesting, and I think it could be laudable. Automation of governance through federated computational governments. Okay, that's laudable. I think that sounds interesting. The use of data contracts extensively, right? Like I could keep going on and on about like all the things that Zhamak, said in her book. This is what a data mesh is. Yeah, I think a lot of those have been kind of abandoned for more of a pragmatic approach that says, oh, okay, well, how can I empower domains to have more control over their data and analytics, or at least analytics, right? Because it's not an operational paradigm. But there's a lot of people that are saying, oh no, data mesh is absolutely an operational paradigm, even though in paragraph 1 of Zhamak's book it says it is not. Yeah. So that's kind of the purist has been abandoned, and there's a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, well, data mesh is doing a great job to deliver value." And then I will poke a little bit, and the answer is that it's making the process of delivering analytics more efficient. Yeah, it's not because the fundamental assumption of the data mesh is that taking a domain centric approach is more valuable to the organization than taking a centralized approach. And I've yet to see any data that suggests that is actually true. So the truth bomb that I dropped in Texas that got a lot of activity, Josh Perryman posted me coming out of Day Texas, where I said, data people have no data on the value of data. Right. And like, just think about that, right? Like, we're the ones that are out there, like, pounding the table saying, you need to be data driven. You need to be data driven. You need to be more data driven. And then if you ask a data person, oh, do you have any data that shows the value of the business value of what you're delivering? Nope.
So again, right, another on one of my favorite topics of this is how you actually provide evidenceable positive effect on your business performance, which in essence I think is business value. And that evidence thing is you go through the court of law. Anyone going in front of a judge, they're going to produce evidence. It could be circumstantial, it could be the smoking gun. Up until now, all we've ever done is gone for the circumstantial PowerPoint presentation. Look, chart going up. We're going to get this. But there's been so many failures in the past that there's a lack of trust in what's being presented, and maybe you'll get it, but it'll be a failure because you have to get a lower budget, which means you couldn't actually achieve what you said, and we all start over again. And I think what I like to refer is, you think of case law. If you're able to reference something you've already done and actually have the evidence, have that smoking gun, and some things are easier to evidence than others. And I think business process optimization, if you collect the data and actually do some good A/B testing, and then release, track, monitor, then compare, there's something you can do that actually can provide that evidence, especially if it was onboarding customers or reducing fraud from fraudulent ones or checking. So there's things that you can, and then that's something we should be doing by default for any projects we're doing now. It's okay, right? At the end of it, how can I provide the evidence along not of just how we are on the project, what post project, once we've done it, how we're actually achieving against the goals we set. Because if we actually take that information back to the next judge who may be on the board of your company, who's got the sign off for the next piece of work, you say, look, we did it for them. Done. Look, here's the evidence. Bang, here you go. Here's your money. You're off. So I think that's something again we should be baking into. Doing some pre-planning, the old OPEX days of and then tracking against that. And hopefully, we'll get more credibility, and we'll actually start to have the thing that you mentioned is the data people are going to have value, and that should be part of the way we work now. But there we go.
I love it. I love it. Just to tie off on the bit I was making, thing I was saying about the data mesh. The assumption may actually be correct. Right. The assumption of taking a domain-centric approach to your analytics, that's a better way of delivering value to our customers. That may actually be correct. I don't know if it is, or I don't know if it isn't. I mean, I think centralized architectures exist for a reason. Ask any network architect. Why centralized patterns exist, or go ask United Airlines why they follow a hub and spoke model. But that's separate. So just want to be clear that the assumptions of the data mesh may be accurate, they may be inaccurate. I just have yet to see any firm data to suggest one way or the other. To the other point, I mean, I think product management to me is really the key here, because product managers look at everything through the lens of value. Right. Because it's pricing is what a product manager does. Here's the price for my good. There's a cost and there's a value going to be delivered to it. And that's a part of everything they do. So I think if we start as an industry to deeply embrace product management as a discipline, not data products per se, that's the exhaust on the product management car. The product management car is what we should be focused on. The exhaust will be the product coming out the end of the car, right? So I think we can start to address this issue of quantification of value by taking more product centric and product management centric approaches to how we do business. The last thing I would say to the issue, well, it's certainly not the last thing. I've got a lot. I've got more in me. But to the issue of value, it's like it's a modeling exercise. The way I look at it, it is absolutely a modeling exercise. Are there going to be examples of one-to-one, clear-cut, deterministic? I turned this dial, and this money came out of the spigot, right? Is that going to exist in our world? No, it's not, right? There's a lot of influences to business process outcomes. There's a lot of things that influence a sales function or procurement function or any other business. There's a lot of drivers there. But data, most certainly, we can all acknowledge is one of them. right? Whether that is data being consumed by an operational process or whether that is data being consumed by a human being to make a decision, we know intuitively that data matters. We know that. We have jobs because it's true. Going from faith to evidence, the case law that you mentioned, I would argue is a modeling exercise. And as we as data professionals, if we say, nope, too hard, can't do it. Can't do it. Too hard.
What trust are we going to get? What trust are we going to get from them?
Well, we're in the modeling business. If it's not us, if it's not us, who is it then?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and totally agree. I think something that you touched on there, and it was one of the things that we had to talk about anyway, was a product manager. Well, a data product manager versus a product. Maybe let's give the AI. It's a buzzword. An AI product manager or a data manager with AI, and if you're building a product, and Greg at again Day-to-Day Techs is a great presentation of. In summary, if your product doesn't exist without AI, then it's still a product. You just enhance it with AI. So you're not a AI product manager as per se. Whereas if your product without the AI it doesn't exist, that is the tick box. There'll be other criteria. But what was interesting that he mentioned, and as well as the industry ever changing and evolving of the roles, the role names, the definitions, data engineers and the analytical engineers, and wherever it keeps going is fragmenting. And also to keep ahead and keep our skills updated is there is a need for more product AI data product managers. Where they're going to come from? Because are we going to just go and try and train some product managers that used to, develop an mobile app, and then give them all the knowledge that they need to be successful in our domain, or do we need to find more data professionals that exist at the moment and provide that product mentality, product way of thinking, aligned to what we've been talking, pragmatic versus purism, balanced individuals that are going to make the data world better.
I would take the former. Yeah. I would, if I had to, right? If I was forced to choose, I would take the former, meaning I would be repackaging or repurposing existing product managers who have experience, particularly in software development, because there's already going to be some grounding in data there. But product management is a discipline. And I would argue you can apply that discipline to making Doritos or making, chemicals or making data products. There will be people out there who are saying, but Malcom, data is unique. It's a snowflake. It never dies, and you can replicate it 1,000 times, and it's not scarce. And there's these unique characteristics. Again, data people love to look at things through the world of attributes. Yep. Data has these snowflake attributes that make it, this is so unique. You couldn't have a normal no. Product managers know this stuff. Product managers are all about the discipline of product management, about product lifecycle management, about building go-to-market strategies, about understanding competitive pressures, understanding pricing, understanding business needs, listening to people and interacting with business people, being able to translate business needs into more technical needs. We could have an interesting conversation about kind of more business-centric product managers versus technical product managers. I've hired both in the past, where I had somebody who was more kind of customer-facing, business-facing, and on the business side, it was more kind of an analyst that was like actually, built, understanding how many story points is this going to be, maybe even getting into going requirements into pseudocode or into more technical documentation needed to create these products. It's fine. But I would argue to your question that product managers, that's a unique skill. Yep. Right. There are unique certifications out there that you can get to be a product manager. These people tend to be a little more kind of problem solvers, a little more customer facing, a little more comfortable interacting with business stakeholders. They also are comfortable in going deep on business processes and understanding business needs versus technical folks. Again, we've just got a lot of predisposition to looking at the world a certain way. And that those views are important. We need those. We need data people. We need data engineers. We need data analysts. We need those people. But I would argue to get the best ROI, shall we say, out of the implementation of a product management discipline within a data and analytics function, that I'd be focused on product managers.
So interesting as you were saying that, and I was before you brought it up, you talked about a technical focused one and a business focused one, and that was where I was going to is that, and I think the common thing that and we can discuss the route that they've come into that, but maybe there's a different route for different one, or maybe there's unicorn that can do both, and that's what ideally we'd want. So having that soft skills that allow you to communicate and not have emotional attachment, and actually understand maybe pragmatism approach from a technical and also from a product scope. And I think that's probably one of the key skills that product manager needs to have. But if they have the ability to be pragmatic and help with the technical implementations, I think Jesse Anderson did a great one about requirements, and he got someone up on the stage. He said, "Okay, I need this stuff real time."
Goes, Aaron Wilkerson was Aaron.
He said, "Okay, I need this stuff real time." Well, why? He goes, "Oh, that's what everyone's doing. That's what the cool kids are up to. You need it real time." And push back. Said, "Well, I could do it. It will take this amount of time, but if I did it batch, it would cost you less. But what are you going to use it for? Oh, we're going to check this. So if it's only an hour late, is it okay? Yeah, it's right. If it's 6 hours late, is it okay? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And actually that pushback and having that conversation, which the technical person up there will go, yeah, cool, right, we're going to go build this real time. Well, in fact, let's even go and build our own framework. Come back down here. There's something already solving this problem. And then the other way around is, you just say, no, I wouldn't do it. Oh no, it can't be done. So you wouldn't get anywhere at all. So having the right skills to be that translator.
It's really a translation role. You're absolutely right about that. And it's also kind of like symptom diagnosis, right? Like, and it's probing, and it is listening, it is complex problem solving. Customers will almost always give you a how, right? If you ask them, what do you need? We are all kind of predisposed to give how, not a why, right? What a product manager will be really, really good at is kind of figuring out the why, and then coming back with maybe a different how in a way that the customer would be, oh, okay, well, I actually didn't think about that, right? Did you, okay, so you're telling me here are the 3 problems that you're trying to solve, right? You're trying to onboard your suppliers faster. You're trying to go from quote to cash quicker, whatever it is. Did you think about A, B, and C, or did you think about C as a potential? No, I actually didn't think about that. Well, let's talk about that. Let's identify all the options instead of diving and just running quickly at a how. Yeah,
I think it's a team sport, and this is something again that I think that's missing as well. Is that we are, and again, I'm not going to blame it maybe on the business strategy or not. Maybe that business strategy not being communicated to everyone in the organization to how their piece is actually helping towards that. And we organizations create environments where we haven't given that clarity, and they're not incentivized to achieving the end goal. They're incentivized maybe under the different metrics or different ways their bosses are steering them, which doesn't actually help with the end game. And going back to the point, the route into it, and I take your point, and I've never been a product manager as such, but I understand the concepts of LEIT, understand the concept. Not going to say I'm any expert or anything like that, but I can probably think that way for delivering it on a technical, but maybe not on a business way. Maybe not the best person on technical. So the route you come in from to take those different. So I'm thinking there could be some technical architects, technical engineers that maybe have got those soft skills. Want to have seen too many failed projects. I think I want to make a difference and get this right. It's an opportunity for you to step up into that role. I think is a good career path, maybe.
I couldn't agree more, particularly with the explosion of AI.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of opportunities for people in the data world to become more business process experts. without a doubt. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But I mean, again, I see two ends of the spectrum, and I could hear some of your listeners saying, maybe today, hearing me talk about this really kind of squishy, soft, back and forth repartee, and let me better understand your needs. I think you could ask the question, do I really need to do that to understand what dashboard somebody needs for their monthly sales report?
Yeah.
Right. Is like, do I need to go through all of that just for this dashboard? Because frankly, if I go back to my CRM system, I can tell you what fields or data are going to be there. I already know what's there and what's not there. Right. That's the other end of the spectrum. That's kind of like the data product classic spectrum, which is, hey, the raw materials are set. I can't go create the raw materials. They're already there. Their fields are there. The tables are there. I know what data is there. So the two ends of the spectrum, soft and squishy and understanding customer needs. But I would argue you need to do that. And you also need to do, kind of the blocking and tackling, basic governance stuff, basic data cataloging, data observability, like all of the stuff that we need to do in the data management world to get it right. It's not an either or, it's a both. It's absolutely both.
And it's in the right order at the right time and for the right budget. So the just-in-time approach, which is again another lean activity as well. But and understanding that you don't have to boil the ocean to go and have that catalog all open plate. And the other one is, if you don't force someone to use the catalog, you want to make them want to use the catalog. So I think that's the other thing to try and create is. Any project I've ever seen where it's been dictated, this is the way you're working without collaboration with them, will fail. You've got two options. You either define the whole thing with them at the process, maybe a slower one, or have a blueprint that you ask them to work towards, and then there's still collaboration piece. So they're the only two options you really got to actually achieve that end goal. Having that right mindset of how you can put the right pieces in place at the right time and not have to, as you say, you don't have to have everything there straight away. And only if you'll lose people on the journey, and maybe that's another reason we had CDOs with a tenure of 18 months to 2 years max, or they're gone because they haven't been able to evidence their the ability for them to add business value. And many routes out. Another point I want to bring up is the chief product owner, chief data officer, and there's talk, and Sol was talking about the role of the CDO on the decline now. Chief analytics officers or other combined titles now. A lot of the problems being where they fit in an organization, but products are understood better. And I think the other issue we've had with the CDO role is chief finance officer. I know what you do. It's easy. Chief information, pretty much it's all your operational systems. They're supported by a technical CTO maybe, or maybe you have one or the other. The CDO has always been very hard, if you have many of those other ones, to see where they actually where their role starts, where their role ends, what the responsibilities are, and where that starts and ends. The chief product officer shouldn't have that problem. So is that the route we should be going now? We should have chief product officers that are data savvy, that have AI knowledge. Is that?
I like it. But it's interesting. I agree with Sol Rashidi, by the way. Absolutely brilliant human who you should be following. Good. She's got a book coming out in another month or so that I'm excited.
She's presenting at Skid on Friday.
Brilliant! Don't miss that. She's an amazing presenter we were lucky to get her. Credibility as long as my arm, both arms and my legs. I mean, just oozes credibility. And I tend to agree with Sol in her assessment on a decline of CDOs. Her analysis of the root cause is primarily what she would say is I would say, I'm putting words in her mouth, but we went back and forth on LinkedIn on this. Was role ambiguity, largely role ambiguity. And I disagree. I think that's absolutely playing a role. The ambiguity of the role is playing a role in the decline of the CDOs, most certainly. But I think the biggest problem that CDOs have is a failure to deliver value.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
They're autonomy. They don't have the ability to deliver what they've been hired to do.
Well, I have a hard time with this one, Chris, because we know through plenty of studies that it's pretty much a 50-50 over the last couple of years. Maybe it's leaning more to 60-40, where CDOs are being either hired to deliver on a transformation mandate, change, meaning they're expected to be a change agent, digital transformation, digital acceleration, whatever coming out of the pandemic we need to do to stop being flat-footed, to leverage the value of data, to become entirely data-driven. Let's transform the organization because we know there's goodness there, right? Like that's about 50 to 60%. 40 to 50% of CDOs are being hired to do back office stuff, right? Operational stuff, to manage a data and analytics infrastructure, to manage governance, maybe do data strategy, but where there's no transformation mandate. And in both of those cases, so there's really kind of only two flavors of CDOs, I would largely argue. And a lot of the former have been failing. Right. And a lot of the former have been failing. What they are saying is, and if you look at Randy Bean's New Vantage Partners, I forget what this new company is, forgive me, but does an annual CDO survey. He and Tom Davenport. Gartner has even got data to suggest that saying for a lot of those people who are failing, what they're coming back with and saying, oh, it's lack of a data culture.
Yep. Okay.
It's lack of a data. It's lack of, it comes back almost number one, number two, or number three, but generally number one, lack of a data culture. Well, what does that mean? I would, and I think people would say, oh, well, they don't want to use, they're using intuition. They're not actually being data driven. They're not using data to fuel their decisions. Baloney. I can talk all day on this one. Everybody is data driven. Everybody is data driven. And I would argue even intuition necessarily is a form of being data driven because you're going from past experiences. But I would say the culture issue, the culture aspects here is culture starts at home. It starts in the data and analytics function, right? And if you want others to be data driven, then you need to be data driven. Let's talk about value. Let's talk about how we prioritize our work.
So this is actually our bonus. In fact, all the listeners out there, I will get to a few questions that are on there in a minute.
Oh, but, there's questions. My bad.
But we had some a bonus topic that we're going to talk about was basically operational world and analytical world co-living in one location, and we chatted over dinner on this one, and how it's evolved. The operational world was very separated from the analytical world. Back when I started in the, it was an afterthought. You had to go and put it in. It didn't have DR. It wasn't high availability. It was too expensive to have that. You did go and build operational processes on top of it, but that was not by design. It was always meant to be downstream, definitely batch as well. It could only be used for anything, not in the loop process. And we've moved a long way since then, and the DevOps approach with data ops sharing the same sort of approach to infrastructure as code or delivering by regular changes and updates and great stuff on database change management. But there's still the overlaps happened, but there's still a bit of string between the two, and they are two different teams. And the world, if technology one day gets that, and the thing you mentioned about Zamac earlier about it's not an operational framework, and if we do get to that point where the operational world and the analytical world is sharing in its same infrastructure, there's a clear understanding of where the data's come in and how it's captured, to how it's going to be used for the analytics. You've got information lifecycle management built into it because it knows how long it's meant to need. You've got predefined. I'm giving this view that's never going to happen, but the rosy, brilliant data streets that are on the end of our end of the horizon. If we get to that, and the technology does allow that data to be stored in one place, but also have different views on it that are actually support the analytics and also the operational. Named Snowflake have got their uni store. It hasn't sort of like got to stage where it's gone mainstream. But if that comes about and becomes one team, one product team, data is just a feature of that.
Release
product.
The pigeons. Release the doves.
Is this
there
it?
They go. All the doves. Release the doves.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
I think we do. It's funny. I asked the question. I was going around like because I like to be provocative. If you haven't already guessed, in a day-to-day Texas, I was going around and asking a lot of people. It's like, hey, do you see a future where analytical data stores versus operational data stores where they just become one? Right. And really the genesis of that question for me was what Microsoft has kind of been doing with what they're calling a data fabric, where in essence, I would argue, we can have a separate technical conversation about this in terms of their throughput and their capabilities with their initial kind of V1 fabric. It's like, lakes, warehouses, where they basically virtualize the differences between them, right? Where it's just one thing now. Right. Yep. Where Microsoft is calling it one lake. They're still using the lake word, but we're in essence where they've kind of dissolved the differences between those worlds. And I was like, okay, well, let's take it one step further. Could we dissolve the difference between OLTP and OLAP? And the answer from people was either yes, absolutely, I could see that world because technologies are advancing really, really quickly, and the new chips, maybe even quantum, who knows? I can absolutely see that world. And then there's others that are like, no, you can't. You're talking about breaking laws of physics and forget about it. It's never going to happen. I think that I do see these worlds absolutely coming together. And if that happens, if that happens, I mean, it's a game changer for us.
So, you actually asked me that question on the table, and Veronica, I'm going to name as well. Is that no? There was a no, there was a yes. I was in the yes camp. The Veronica was a no. I don't know if we convinced her by the end of the dinner that to agree with us, but. I think in essence, you should agree it was a technology limitation that exists at the moment that is preventing it happening. I think after that's been solved, it will be the next layer up. It's a business way of working issue. But I think the last piece is, and I think that's the contract. I'm going to use the data contracts. It's the contracts views of all of those different systems that you're using in your little ecosystem. She's
Oh, is Veronica here?
Veronica, yeah, she's
hey, Veronica.
Yeah,
Veronica Durkin, by the way. VP Data for Sachs.
Yeah, these worlds are already together. It's just very expensive. Okay, all right, well, so Veronica, she's agreeing. Okay, well, if we can get the price down, it's right then. So,
well, but anytime I see anything where the limitation is just technology, right? That one's doable, right? To me, and maybe physically. We still have unstructured stores and versus structured stores. Maybe physically that's what's there. But we have some sort of virtualization layer where the functional distinction between the two is irrelevant.
So I think I've debated this quite a few times. But if you have this mix and match approach, and this is where I think there's going to be a limit of how this will happen or how successful this will be because of the vendors. And maybe I'll be wrong. But if you start, unless you go all one camp again, it's just like you go all light blue, rather than dark blue or red. Now everything's all snowflake. If you did that with containerization, which you've already got the Salesforce, you're using NetSuite for your for your finance. The only thing you need to have that is always your USP, your special sources organization. That's the only bit of data model logic you'd have to add to something that can be pre-built. And if you're an e-commerce business, you're selling SKUs to people on the website that you've got these attributes to that subscribe. It's not that different between insurance companies. Yeah, you'll have a special pricing engine. You've got it. You may have access to some other data that someone else doesn't. But in essence, it's the same business. And I've worked across payment companies. We've got ISO 8583 been around since the 80s. It's a standard contract for payments. It doesn't change. There's things out there that if there was that mapping to all these things, and we did have that sort of ISO buy into, here's the ISO stands for CRM system. There you go, everybody, plumb it all into it. I think that world of getting that view of that analytical view, plus your operational capabilities with your little special source added on it to differentiate yourself. That should be the blueprint of the future.
Yeah. Well, the hard stuff for us in the data world, I would argue a lot of the hard stuff, or at least for the 80% of data scientists' time that is lost to data quality issues. That's like that which is not data quality. It's wrangling, and you're never going to convince me that requirement to change a table structure, to make it conform for an analytical use is a data quality issue. To me, it's not. But that's a separate issue. Anytime we have to change data in our world, whether we have to change the definition of something, we have to change the structure of something. that's when work is created for us and things get hard, because then you need to have rules for how to do all of that stuff.
Yep. Yep.
If we had some, and I had an interesting conversation a few months ago with a friend of mine, Tom Redman, who's written a number of books in the field, is well known, and I asked the question, well, maybe AI, and just loosely AI, and I know there's a lot of different forms of AI, can become this magic kind of translator ring, right? Where we finally have a common language, where we finally have a common language between operational languages and analytical languages.
Yep.
Can AI be sitting in the middle there, acting like this translation layer, where a lot of these differences are just dissolved away?
Yep. I think it's going to happen gradually anyway, because more people are going to be using ChatGPT. You're going to get the same responses coming back from different people. They're going to bring it together. They're going to ask the same things. They're going to map it for them. It's going, there you go, done.
Yeah.
So I think the days of having to Google and having to different sites, it's maybe it's wrong or right. There's been some standardization with the answers and responses given for certain questions, and but maybe there's some benefits and some negatives to that. But the benefits could be, okay, look, that is your standard CRM. Oh, can I map that onto Salesforce? Yeah, that's what 80% of people. And I've talked to companies before about, this could be crowdsourced. You put an open source product, like DBT or something. They've mapped these common things into it. That comes a common metadata that can be licensed later on. Everyone starts subscribing to the mapping. The mapping's metadata. Yeah, metadata is the new gold. Is the data about the data is where it's all about.
It is entirely the new gold, and I think the biggest roadblock to doing what I just mentioned is that most of our data, at least the data that is, I would arguably most valuable, is sitting in rows and columns.
Yep.
And these Gen AI models consume text. Right. This is why people like our common friend Juan Cicada is talking about how graphs could be useful here to make the jump, to provide the context that Gen AI needs in order to make sense out of rows and columns. Yep. Right. But if I'm doing a startup somehow in the data and analytics world, it's right there, that world between rows and columns and Gen AI consuming large chunks of text for fine tuning of these Gen AI models. Like, solve for that. If you can get the goodies out of the rows and columns in a way that Gen AI can, solutions and LLMs can actually consume it. Woo!
Yeah, that's where the dollar's going to be, isn't it? So anyone out there doing that wants mine and Malcolm's view on it, we're happy to get some advisory shares for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Chris and I come as a pair, and this one we're happy to advise for equity for sure.
So we're down, and then I'm going to apologise to everyone out there that's put some comments on. I haven't got back to answering. So shout out to Val, John, Loretta, Paul Sargent, Anna, and a few. So sorry I didn't get out. Maybe we'll come back later on. We'll address some of the questions afterwards offline.
I can jump on as well.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to find out where they can find you next, what you're up to, how to get in touch, what's the best way, Malcolm?
So number one is LinkedIn. So there's only 3 Malcolm Hawkers in the world that I'm aware of. So if you do spell the first name correctly with that extra L, it's tricky, but it's Scottish. You'll get there. There's not a lot of us out there. Would love to connect on LinkedIn. I'm doing, I think, I don't know what the last count is, at least 8 to 12 city tour this year, where I'm going to be going to Microsoft technology centers across the United States, talking about data products, talking about AI, talking about MDM. So I will be maybe coming to a city near you. Hopefully you can join, and we can have a beer and talk about data. But LinkedIn's the best way to reach me.
Yeah, well, I highly recommend anyone taking that opportunity. If Malcolm's in a city near you, you won't be disappointed for his presentation and also the after dinner chats as well. So, so I suppose I'll do a quick shout out. So I think next week we're going to have Stephen McLeod on here. Maybe next week, maybe the week after, just validating it. But is value of wisdom worth more than the value of data? It's a spicy one, this one. We've got some views on that. I met Stephen over LinkedIn. I had quite a few conversations after some posts on this topic, which actually, a spoiler alert, is part of my presentation at Skid on Friday, which is trying to demystify where data starts and where wisdom ends. Malcolm, thank you very much for the show. Yeah, I haven't even gone back and looked to see if we've covered all the bullet points we had, and I think we had an extra couple of questions that were asked, but yeah, we'll
happy to continue the conversation on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, brilliant, and thanks again for your time. I'll see you in New York because we're both at Data Universe. I think is it the 6th and 7th of April?
I think it's that week.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's in there.
So anyway, anyone in New York, you'll probably be there. Anyone in Switzerland or coming to Skid, I'll see you on Friday. And yeah, maybe next week or week after, we'll have Stephen McLeod on there talking about the value of wisdom. Is the value of wisdom worth more than the value of data? So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks, all.
What?